Well, welcome once again to another edition of Pray on This. Happy Monday. Before we get going, hit that like button and subscribe. So, can we look at all of this with nonpartisan eyes? I took the weekend off. Friday evening, after watching the Prime Minister deflect from his own scandal with the fury of an attack at three Conservative MPs who dared to have dinner with a German politician who does belong to a far right German party and a protester at a Ukraine rally of support in Toronto, I was furious. The PM was using the same politician who last year denounced Trudeau when he spoke at the EU Parliament to deflect from his own misdeeds, and once again showing his utter disgust for a lowly Canadian who disagrees with him. Was this attack as much about deflecting from the Chinese Communist Party election interference as it was to get back at a woman who dared take the great Justin Trudeau to task? I wanted to take to Twitter, flame the Prime Minister and his supporters. I was in a very nasty mood. But my wife Pamela asked me to put down the phone, walk away from the computer, and avoid the news until Sunday. I reluctantly agreed. Didn't even read my normal 5 newspapers I read on a Sunday. Didn't look at my email, avoided Twitter, and just enjoyed the weekend with family and friends. I just shut it all off and came back to it late yesterday afternoon to do research for this column, and I did so putting my conservative leanings aside. Instead of being angry, I looked at the current state of Canada and our politics with as neutral an eye as possible, and I've come to an astonishing conclusion. Our Prime Minister is an immature child. I know we've talked about the Emergency Act inquiry, and we all know that the chair said that Trudeau was justified in using the act. That has been the focus. Either Trudeau was justified or the judge was reluctant in his decision. Perhaps even that slippery slope in making this ruling that has made it okay to use this act in the future. However, if we look close, we will see that Justice Rouleau didn't actually see the legal opinion that Trudeau and his cabinet used. He accepted that that was protected under solicitor-client privilege and said it's okay because he feels he has to believe the Prime Minister, senior ministers, and officials because they wouldn't lie. What we all missed is that the PM, in his setting up of this inquiry, tied its hands with choosing the focus of the investigation not to be on his and his cabinet's motivations in the use of the act, but on the convoy itself, the convoy's supporters, their funding, the province of Ontario, and the police. Now, the Chinese election interference. The Prime Minister's first response was, I never received a briefing on election interference. Then it was, there may have been some, but it was not serious. Then it's no Liberal received any improper help or money from China. Now it's, well, there was some, but it was not enough to affect the election outcome, followed by his demand that CSIS find the whistleblower and that there's no need for an independent inquiry. Everything's okay because Justin said so. There's a pattern here. The PM breaks ethics laws, looks dirty in a scandal. It's deflect or trust me. I'm telling the truth this time. His ministers break ethics laws. It's a learning opportunity. Or it's tell a lie. Tell a different lie. Tell more lies till you believe me. Finally, it's nothing to see here. I said so. It's become so bad that all of his ministers lie to the Canadian people all the time. And when they're caught in outrageous lies, they double down. The final, and in my opinion, is the most desperate call and signs that the Trudeau government is imploding, is that Pierre Poilievre is a former US President Donald Trump clone, and we don't need his style of division in our politics. This is the case that the Liberal Party from the Prime Minister right down to a Liberal Party Twitter troll named Vicky Campbell used to defend Trudeau no matter what. This past weekend, the said Twitter troll Vicky Campbell demanded that Leslyn Lewis be deported to Jamaica for meeting with Christine Anderson, and the other two MPs be thrown out of office. Christine Anderson, the above-mentioned German politician. Ms. Lewis immigrated to Canada when she was 5 years old. The 52-year-old has lived here for 47 years. She was educated here and is very much a Canadian. Is this not U.S. Trump-style politics being used? And not by the Conservative Party, but by the Liberals and their rabid defenders. When I look at the Prime Minister and those who support him with almost cultist god-like worship, I'm forced to ask what I'm witnessing. And how did we not see this sooner? We should have seen this man for what he is. It should have been long before he was even Liberal Party leader, when he said Prime Ministers should be from Quebec. We're simply the best. This country belongs to us, when speaking of his opinion of then Prime Minister Stephen Harper, who was from Alberta. However, we didn't, and since then we have had the following: the Aga Khan affair, SNC-Lavalin, We Charity scandal, David McNaughton, the former Canadian ambassador to the U.S., improperly lobbying Parliament after his appointment ended. Blackface by the Prime Minister so many times he doesn't remember how many times he did it. The India trip with its costumes and dancing. The weaponization of vaccines and mandates. The convoy protest. The Emergency Act. Freezing of bank accounts without legal process. Drinking, singing, and spending $7,000 a night on a hotel at Her Majesty's funeral. The Emergencies Act inquiry. The Chinese government election interference. All of this without even talking about what really matters to Canadians: high inflation, high interest rates, the ever-increasing carbon tax, fertilizer restrictions, or the general hate and disdain that Justin Trudeau has for average Canadians, especially those who disagree with him. We're racists, transphobes, homophobes, misogynists, Nazis, white supremacists, a small fringe minority that take up space, and as leader, he has to ask himself, how do we tolerate these people? When questioned with real questions, not hand-picked friendly liberal crowds with pre-written questions, it's always the Conservatives' fault. It's the former government's fault, or when caught red-handed in whatever scandal, including the latest, it's the old Frank Drebin tactic from that spoof comedy, The Naked Gun. Nothing to see here. Move along. All is well. Trust me. Or it's fake news. When I listen or talk to real liberals like Dan Mateague or Stephen Ledrew, they don't like Justin Trudeau, and they're just as disgusted in him personally and as our Prime Minister as I am. Ledrew went so far as to say this in a recent column about Trudeau. Those who know Trudeau, or have studied him in office, know that he is not only immature and calculatedly unfair to those who are not in his circle, but know that he is unschooled. The English have a perfect word to describe our Prime Minister: a cockwomble. To save you time in looking it up, here it is. A person prone to making outrageously stupid statements and or inappropriate behavior while having a generally high opinion of his own wisdom and importance. Does that not perfectly capture our Prime Minister? I would go so far to say that liberals who support Trudeau and paint his opponents as Trump clones, who are terrified that a Poilievre government will bring U.S.-style politics here, are actually using U.S.-style Trump politics and tactics in their defense of Trudeau. When I look at the events of the last 10 days, I do not see a way our Prime Minister escapes this without serious damage to his personal brand and that of his parties. I do not see how any reasonable Canadian could not see what a cockwomble our leader is. However, I have faith. The majority of Canadians are intelligent, reasonable people with common sense. We will survive this cockwomble Prime Minister. We will rebuild and repair our country. We will once again install reasonable political discourse, and we will once again restore our international reputation when this man-child, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, is on the ash heap of history. The only question is when we get to judge him at the ballot box. It's been 7 years, 4 months, and 8 days since Justin Trudeau became Canada's 23rd Prime Minister. Justin, in that time, you have been measured, you have been weighed, and you have been found lacking. Your time is up, Justin. It's time to grow up, be a man, and go to the people and allow us to decide your fate. That, as always, is Pray on This. Once again, before I leave you, have a great week. Hit that like button and subscribe. And I'll see you the next time Pray has a comment on this.